So today we begin our Things Blender Should Steal from Other Software series. Before we begin, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page here. To everyone who left a comment, thank you very much. I do read them when I can, and I actually agree with a lot of the points that you guys brought up. We definitely have the most supportive community, and that has real value. And there are many things that I think Blender does better than everyone else. Grease Pencil is amazing. How our camera system automatically shifts between perspective and orthographic views when moving around is one of the best systems I've ever seen. And if we're talking about aesthetic, 3.0's UI is gorgeous compared to, man, let's just say Maya's real behind in that area. We should be proud of what we're good at. But where I start to disagree is when it comes to this idea that Blender shouldn't want to become industry standard, or that it's a good thing that Blender isn't standard, because this is where things start to make no sense. Industry standard is just whatever gets the best results in the shortest amount of time within reasonable cost. That's it. If Blender objectively delivered the best results in the shortest amount of time with no cost, it would become industry standard tomorrow. Because contrary to popular belief, the industry doesn't like spending money either. There is no downside to becoming industry standard, because being the standard means that your software delivers the best results in the shortest time. And we should want that, because that means it would start to get taught in university. New young 3D students would be trained in it by default. It would be required experience for most AAA job interviews. The more people use it, the more our community grows, the more skills and experience our community has, the better it becomes. Some of you might be surprised to hear this, but a lot of Maya users actually hate Maya. Professionals don't have a loyalty to a particular software the way Blender users do. Their allegiance simply lies with the best tool for the job. End of story. I promise the day Blender overtakes Maya, you're gonna see a lot of super happy ex-Maya users join the chat. And I genuinely believe that we can make that a reality. And we're actually really close. That's why this month I'm gonna cover the changes that I believe will make the biggest differences and make Blender a much larger threat to its competition. And I'm not saying that these are the only changes or the most important changes, or even the correct changes. These are just changes that I would make if I was Blender God. I'm only going to cover topics that are directly in my field regarding character design and animation. It's very possible that we as a community will find even better solutions than the ones I'm about to show you. And I actually expect that and am looking forward to it. In the meanwhile, I just think it's important for us as a community to be open-minded about the different ways that other software have tackled the issues that we will have to eventually improve in Blender. With that being said, I have taken very careful steps in order to steelman each software at its best, so that when I present them head to head, it's as objective as possible. And that's because I do not deal in opinions. I deal in one thing, and that is results. Because at the end of the day, Blender is a tool to create 3D art. The better the tool, the more art we can make, and the faster we can make it. So here are the standards that I will be using to judge each software against each other. Criteria 1, did it complete the task? This is a simple yes/no question. Criteria 2, how long did it take to complete? We just measured that in time. And criteria 3, how many user inputs did it require? That's it. There is one more bonus criteria, and that is how intuitive was the solution, but we'll get more into that in later videos. So those are my standards for all software. So let's look at our first example. Blender 3.0 added a new type of pose library, and it's really good. Basically, instead of adding the poses here, then having to click the little magnifying glass, you can add them to this animation tab up here. And once they're added, you can just click to activate that pose. It's much faster than the old system, but how does it stack against other software? Well, let's take a look. Let's say you're cleaning up some basic motion capture animation. In this animation, let's say every 10 frames you wanted the character's hands to cycle through rock, paper, scissors. So let's do it in Blender first and see how long it takes to complete the task. Alright, honestly that was pretty smooth. Now let's try that same task in Maya. Okay, let's analyze. First criteria, could it complete the task? And the answer is yes, both software did. Second criteria, how long did it take? Well, in Blender it took us about 19 seconds, and in Maya it took about 7. Third criteria, how many user inputs did it require? In this case, it actually took the same number of inputs. In Blender, it took me one click to drag to a new position on the timeline, and one more click to activate the pose library for each hand position, which totals to 20 inputs altogether. In Maya, it also took one click for each frame on the timeline, and to activate a new pose, it took one hotkey. Obviously, the most important differences here are time required, because hotkeys are faster than clicking, and Maya has the ability to turn literally anything into a hotkey. Some of you might be thinking, okay, so it took an extra 12 seconds, so what? But you have to realize that this example was only 100 frames, which is a little under 2 seconds of animation. If you were working on a real project that was 15 minutes long, assuming you're working at 60 frames a second, you're talking about 54,000 frames of animation. And just to give you an idea of how many animations can go into 1 second, watch this.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now? In 1 second, that man's face made 5 different movements, and you will have to clean those up every frame. And if you're poor and you couldn't afford motion capture gloves, well, guess what? Now you're also animating the hands each second. So the point is, if this was a 7-hour job in Maya, that means it would be a 19-hour job in Blender. So these seconds start to matter a lot more the bigger your project. All right, complaining is easy, but let's talk solutions, because solutions are what we're really looking for. How could we make Blender's solution as good or better than Maya? Well, honestly, it's actually a really easy fix. Blender already has built-in features to allow you to assign new hotkeys to pretty much everything. As it stands now, almost every option that you see in the menu can be right-clicked and assigned a hotkey. But for some reason, they just didn't add this feature to the pose libraries. But if they did, Blender could easily give Maya a run for its money when it comes to cleaning up animations like this. So that would be my solution. If you have any better ideas, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Again, the new 3.0 pose libraries are awesome. I just think a few more tweaks and that future would easily be industry standard. If you join me next video, then I'll be covering more changes that I believe will make Blender a bigger threat to its competition. And as always, hope you have a fantastic day, and I'll see you around.